la lumière, faire les danses de l'équilibre. Enfin oui, j'ai vu des trucs, mais je ne connais pas plus.
Le statut tout à fait. Moi je faisais comme le box
avec le ressort, enfin pas le ressort, mais...
quelqu'un qui passait au bureau en fait, et tout le monde essayait de chercher le son. Et cette chose, on a perdu l'équilibre, et donc j'ai des fois de courir sur le bureau, vers le haut, et il est tombé dans le verre d'eau, mais c'est parti. Mais bon, après, elle reprend le truc, et c'était trompé, et donc ça goûtait sur la tête du gars qui commence à tout ça. C'était un échec complètement. Elle tombe, elle emmerde de l'eau sur le bureau, et on se fait là, c'est idiot. On était tellement.
On n'y voyait rien. Ça va.
Da waren 30 Sekunden.
Laurent, en fait, il doit poser une question à Stoltenberg, donc il se mettra juste pour être visible, mais après il va... Pour Stoltenberg Pour Stoltenberg, on se connecte avec le câble. Je mets le boom uniquement quand il y a les ministres. Marc
Можно было бы спросить, как относитесь к границе, в том числе решать беженцев, которые
Что думаешь?
No? You're plugged to the channel?
Channel 2 is the new channel.
I'm still on.
Yeah.
Okay. In case you tell me. Ah, bah, je vais faire 18h30 à mon avis.
Pour les questions, ça va. On est derrière.
NATO was founded on a single solemn purpose, an attack on one ally is an attack on all. From that foundation, we have built the most powerful and successful alliance in history. And over the past 75 years, NATO's open door has helped to spread democracy and prosperity across Europe. As we celebrate NATO's achievements, we do not rest upon them. Europe now faces war on a scale we thought was assigned to history. In recent days, Ukraine has launched new major attacks, striking Ukrainian civilians and infrastructure, and Russia continues to press along the front lines. So we must stand firm in our support to Ukraine.
and I welcome that allies continue to make major deliveries of weapons, ammunition and equipment. But Ukraine has urgent needs. Any delay in providing support has consequences on the battlefield as we speak. So we need to shift the dynamics of our support. We must ensure reliable and predictable security assistance to Ukraine for the long haul, so that we rely less on voluntary contributions and more on NATO commitments, less on short-term offers and more on multi-year pledges. Therefore, ministers will discuss how NATO could assume more responsibility for coordinating military equipment and training for Ukraine, anchoring this within a robust NATO framework. We will also discuss a multi-year financial commitment to sustain our support. This ministerial will set the stage for achieving consensus on these issues as we prepare for the Washington summit. NATO allies provide 99% of all military support to Ukraine. So doing more under NATO would make our efforts more efficient and more effective. Moscow needs to understand that they cannot achieve their goals on the battlefield and they cannot wait us out. Tomorrow we will hold a meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council. With Minister Kuleba, we will address the current situation and Ukraine's needs both now and for the future. We are transforming NATO's comprehensive assistance package into a multi-year program of assistance. We are helping Ukraine move closer to NATO standards on everything from procurement or logistics. And we are supporting Ukraine's reform efforts to bring Ukraine ever closer to the alliance. Ukraine will become a member of NATO. It is a question of when, not if. Tomorrow we will also meet with our Indo-Pacific partners, Australia, New Zealand, Japan and South Korea, together with the European Union. We know that our security is not regional, it is global. The war in Ukraine illustrates this clearly. Russia's friends in Asia are vital for continuing its war of aggression. China is propping up Russia's war economy. In return, Moscow is mortgaging its future to Beijing. North Korea and Iran are delivering substantial supplies of weapons and ammunition. In return, Pyongyang and Tehran are receiving Russian technology and supplies that help them advance their missile and nuclear capabilities. This has regional and global security consequences. So like-minded nations around the world need to stand together to defend a global order ruled by law, not by force. Tomorrow we will discuss how best to work together towards this end. We also have much to gain from practical cooperation, including on technology, cyber and hybrid threats, as well as support to Ukraine. All of this matters for European security and for Indo-Pacific security. Countering rising global threats requires sustained spending. A record number of allies will meet NATO's 2% of GDP spending target this year, and I look forward to further progress. At our ministerial, we will also discuss how to address instability in our southern neighbourhood, including the continuing threat of terrorism. We will also agree a new policy on women, peace and security, because our societies are stronger and safer when we draw on the contributions of all our people. And with that, I am happy to take some questions.
Lauren Cook from the Associated Press, Secretary General. I understand you've been working on an idea of perhaps more predictable, longer-term support for Ukraine that might involve the transfer of the Ukraine contact group to NATO control, perhaps also some finances. Could you tell us a bit more about it and why it's important, please?
Well, I see that you have been briefed on the proposal, but I will not go into the details of the proposal. What I can say is that I welcome that allies agree that we need to sustain our support to Ukraine. We need to make it more robust, and therefore we are now discussing ways to institutionalize more of the support within a NATO framework, to make it more predictable, to make it more robust, because we strongly believe that support to Ukraine should be less dependent on short-term voluntary offers and more dependent on long-term NATO commitments. By doing that, we will give Ukraine what they need, and that is long-term, predictable, robust support. And that will also send a message to Moscow that they cannot wait us out. And the reality is that if we want this war to end, the sooner we can convince Moscow that they will not win on the battlefield, they cannot wait us out, the sooner we can then be able to reach a peace agreement where Russia realizes that they cannot win the war, but have to sit down and negotiate an agreement where Ukraine prevails as a sovereign independent nation. So a stronger NATO role in coordinating and providing support is a way to end this war in a way where Ukraine prevails. We already have a lot of coordination. 99% of the support to Ukraine comes from NATO allies. And of course I welcome the capability coalitions, the Rammstein format, many other multinational and bilateral initiatives, but there is a need to give this a more robust and institutionalized framework to ensure predictability and commitment for long haul.
Thank you. The next question to ZDF, Florian.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Stoltenberg. The number we were briefed on is 100 billion. Can you say anything about this number, and especially if you're talking about fresh and new money or just adding up what has been promised already by member states of NATO? And the second question, are you planning to abolish the Rammstein format and really include it into NATO?
So first, what is obvious is that we need new and more money for Ukraine, and we need it over many years. And the whole idea of now discussing frameworks, commitments, an institutionalized framework for the support is to ensure more predictability and more confidence in that the money will come every month, every year for the long haul. So again, I will not go into the details. There will be no final decision at the meeting today and tomorrow. We will hopefully move forward towards consensus, and then we will have an agreement in place by the summit. The reason why we do this is the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine. It is serious. We see how Russia is pushing, and we see how they try to win this war by just waiting us out. And then we need to answer by sending a clear message of practical support, financial support, and an institution, a framework that ensures that we are there for the long haul to be able to end the war. So I'm absolutely certain that allies agree that we need more money, we need new money, we need it for many years. What we now are discussing is exactly the framework to establish that. Whatever we do, of course, will be closely coordinated with all the other initiatives that NATO allies are part of. NATO is part of the Rammstein group. NATO allies are part of the Rammstein group. 99% of the military support provided through the Rammstein group is provided by NATO allies. We meet here at the NATO headquarters. We discuss this issue both at the Rammstein format here at the NATO headquarters. We discuss them at NATO ministerial meetings. It's very much the same people. And actually the people who are responsible for delivering the support today is actually many of them working for NATO allies, or all of them are actually working for NATO allies, and the general responsible for the whole logistics, the support that goes to Poland, to the hub in Poland, and all the work in Wiesbaden that underpins the work on that's General Cavoli. And the General Cavoli is the US commander in Europe, but General Cavoli is also the NATO commander in Europe. And of course, I think that General Cavoli can coordinate with General Cavoli. It's the same man, the same people, the same countries, the same money from the same countries. So, of course, NATO allies will be able to coordinate. Now we're discussing how to have the best institutions, the best commitments, and the best framework to ensure efficiency, predictability, political oversight, and that we have the endurance needed to ensure that Ukraine prevails.
Thank you. The next question is to Ole from European Pravda.
Thank you much. Mr. Secretary General, so 2 quick questions. First, could you please preview us on what's going to be discussed at the NATO-Ukraine Council and whether those things that you mentioned regarding Ukraine's support, long-term commitments, are going to be part of that? A second question, Ukraine leadership has been claiming that Russia is preparing a major counter-offensive to take place in May or June. So what's NATO's assessment of that? Do you see any preparations, any military build-up on the part of Russia to do that? Thank you.
Well, we see a constant Russian military build-up. We see how they are receiving ammunition, weapons from North Korea and Iran, a significant amount of weapons and ammunition. We see how Russia has been able to put their economy on a war footing. And we see how Russia, Moscow, is willing to pay a very high price in terms of men and material in marginal gains on the Ukrainian battlefield with little to no respect for human lives. So this is, of course, the reason why the situation on the battle front line is so difficult, is so challenging, and that's exactly the reason why we need to do more from NATO allies. Both the urgent need for more air defense, for more artillery, but also the more long-term institutionalized effort of establishing the frameworks, the structures, moving away from short-term announcements, short-term offers, to long-term real commitments, multi-year commitments, to ensure the predictability and the sustainability of our support to address exactly what we have seen coming from Russia, a military build-up over a long time.
Thank you very much. We'll move over to New Zealand TV.
How important is it that the Indo-Pacific partners continue to give to Ukraine as well? And how important is it that they're here for these next 2 days?
I welcome very much that our Indo-Pacific partners take part in our foreign ministerial meeting in Brussels today and tomorrow. I just met with the Foreign Minister of New Zealand. We had a very good discussion, and it reflects the fact that our security is not regional, our security is global. What happens in Ukraine matters for Asia. The more successful Putin is in Ukraine, the more likely it is that we can see something similar happen in the South China Sea. We see also how Russia's friends in Asia are helping him, supporting his war of aggression against Ukraine. Iran and North Korea, key providers of weapons and ammunition to Russia. So this just highlights that security in Asia is intertwined with security in Europe, and therefore the Asia and the Pacific is important for us. I welcome also the fact that I am now invited for the 3rd time the heads of state and government from New Zealand, Australia, Japan and South Korea, our partners in the Asia Pacific, to attend the summit in Washington in July. This reflects that we are actually now doing more together. I believe, and I also welcome that we are now discussing also flagship projects, how we can do more on cyber, on resilience, also in providing support to Ukraine. And I commend New Zealand and other partners in the region for actually being major providers of non-lethal support to NATO's comprehensive assistance package for Ukraine. So, yeah, we welcome them. It's great to have such strong partners. And in a world where authoritarian powers align more and more, it's even more important that like-minded countries like Australia and NATO allies, New Zealand, also align and work more closely together.
Thank you. We'll take one final question from Alexander Filipenko.
Yes. Hello, thank you. Will and how will, hopefully, Ukraine contact group be instilled in the NATO organism? And is it a form of a Trump-proof measure? Does it indicate that NATO is concerned with the possibility of Trump presidency?
So first of all, again, NATO is part of the contact group. The contact group has done extremely important work, has been key in delivering support, and NATO allies have delivered unprecedented level of military support to Ukraine, not least organized by the UDCG, or Ukraine Defense Contact Group, the Ramstein format. And as I said, I'm absolutely certain what every NATO does, we will be able to coordinate with existing structures, because it's very much the same people, and in charge of everything here is General Cavoli, who is the US commander, but at the same time also the NATO commander. So, of course, this will be coordinated. Then what was the next?
Trump-proof
No,
measure.
well, the reason why we discuss this is that we see the situation on the battlefield. We see how demanding and difficult the situation is in Ukraine. So therefore, we welcome everything NATO allies have done. At the same time, we see that we need to do more. It's not enough. And Ukrainians, they need more support, but they also need more predictable and long-term support. So it's possible to plan, to organize, and to launch offensives. Then you need long-term planning. You need to know what you are going to have, and what kind of equipment, and what kind of support, and what kind of maintenance. And this requires a stronger institutionalized framework to deliver a more robust and predictable support to Ukraine. So that's the reason why we are discussing this. It's a reflection of the seriousness on the battlefield. Then I would like to say that, of course, we all believe it's important, or I strongly believe it's important, that allies make decisions fast. And that includes, of course, the United States. Because the United States is not the only supporter for Ukraine. Actually, European allies and Canada are providing roughly 50% of the military support to Ukraine. So this is really a shared effort by the United States and European allies and Canada. But of course, the United States is the biggest ally and is providing the most military support. And the fact that there has been no agreement in the US Congress on a supplemental or continued this support has consequences. That's one of the reasons why the Ukrainians have to ration the number of artillery shells, why they have problems standing up against the Russian force with overwhelming military power, because of they are able to outgun them with more ammunition and more artillery. And the answer to that is to then make the decisions, not least in the US Congress. Any delay has real consequences on the battlefield. I met senators, members of the House of Representatives, and they are all, over the last weeks, and they have all assured me that there is a big majority in the US Congress for support. So the issue is now to turn that majority into a vote, a firm decision. And I hope that can happen as soon as possible. There's also a big majority in the US public for continued support to Ukraine. So I expect the US now to make a decision, because it's in the US security interest to ensure that President Putin doesn't prevail in Ukraine, not least because this will also encourage other authoritarian leaders, including Beijing, to use military force and to violate international law.
Thank you, Secretary General. There will be opportunities for more questions this afternoon at the press conference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Radek Sikorski, Foreign Minister of Poland. Delighted to be here, the first ministerial with Sweden as a full member, 75th anniversary. Poland, I believe, is now the country which spends the biggest proportion of its GDP on defense in the entire alliance. We hope that's an inspiration to others. I'm looking forward to hearing from our Ukrainian colleagues about the challenges at the front. Poland will also be supporting the creation of a NATO mission in order to regularize the help that we are rendering Ukraine. And lastly, I encourage you to read the joint article I have just published together with my colleagues from Germany and France in Politico, which sets out our detailed views. Thank you very much.
Secretary General Stoltenberg seemed quite confident that at the July summit in Washington there's going to be an agreement on a new framework for Ukraine, including funds of possibly 100 billion. Where should this money come from, and how concerned are you that a possible new U.S. administration might undermine efforts to actually put in place new frameworks?
We support the Secretary General's efforts. Thank you.
A comment on the Polish aid worker coming together?
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi everybody. Good to see you. Mélanie Joly, Foreign Minister from Canada. Mélanie Joly, la ministre des Affaires étrangères du Canada. Ça me fait plaisir de vous voir aujourd'hui. It's a pleasure to be back here at NATO celebrating 75 years of the alliance. Canada, as a founding member, is extremely proud of this year. And also we're an Arctic nation, and therefore we're extremely happy to see Sweden now being part of NATO. Alors, ça nous fait plaisir d'être ici et de célébrer nos 75 ans en tant qu'alliance. Et nous sommes également très contents de voir que la Suède se joint à l'OTAN. Now, talking about Ukraine, Putin thought that he would divide us. Now we're stronger than ever. We know we have to continue to be united supporting Ukraine. Canada has been supportive of Ukraine since day one. We know also we have to continue to invest in supporting militarily and at all levels Ukraine. That is why we signed recently a long-term security agreement with Ukraine. Tomorrow we'll be also talking about the Indo-Pacific. Lots of our Indo-Pacific friends and partners will be here. Canada, as a Pacific nation, will continue to commit a lot of our resources to the Indo-Pacific. Right now, after the U.S., we are the NATO partners that have the most frigates in the region. We need to invest in the Indo-Pacific to make sure that we keep things steady in the region. Donc, ça me fait plaisir de répondre à vos questions. Essentiellement, lorsque vient la question de l'Ukraine, le Canada, on a été là dès le début, dès le jour 1. Nous avons investi massivement au niveau militaire, mais également à plusieurs autres niveaux avec l'Ukraine. D'ailleurs, c'est pourquoi nous avons signé une entente à long terme d'assurance auprès de l'Ukraine. Et également, je voulais vous parler aussi de l'Indo-Pacifique. Le Canada est une nation du Pacifique et nous avons beaucoup investi dans la région. D'ailleurs, nous avons 3 frégates présentement dans la région de l'Indo-Pacifique. Nous sommes le partenaire de l'OTAN qui a le plus de frégates après les États-Unis. Alors, nous allons continuer d'être un partenaire sur lequel on peut compter dans la région, alors qu'on sait que les tensions s'élèvent peu à peu dans l'Indo-Pacifique. Alors, je suis prête à prendre vos questions. I'm ready to take your questions.
Minister, how concerned are you that a possible new U.S. administration might undermine efforts of the NATO allies to put in place new efforts to support Ukraine?
So first and foremost, Canada knows well the U.S. They're our neighbors, best friends. And when it comes to Ukraine, I'm convinced that the U.S. will find a way to continue to support Ukraine. It is important to remember that Russia is supported by China when it comes to Ukraine, and that is why we need to address these threats together.
Would you support a new fund?
Do you think it's realistic that NATO agrees on a 100 billion fund for the next 5 years for Ukraine as proposed by the Secretary General of NATO?
Well, of course, we're always there to support the different ideas that are presented by the Secretary General. We've already also committed a long-term security arrangement to Ukraine. Prime Minister Trudeau was there recently, a month ago, and it was one of the ideas that Canada put to the table at the G7 to make sure that Ukraine would be in a strong negotiating position one day when the war is over and Russia will still be a very dangerous neighbor. So we wanted to make sure that Ukraine could have access to these security assurances, these guarantees, until becoming a member of NATO. And that's why we continue to welcome any form of support that Ukraine can have, because we need to send a message to Ukrainians themselves, but we also need to send a message to Russia.
On Middle East, a couple of weeks ago, there are tourist activity, especially in Iraq. So Canada, one of the members of the ally against Daesh, ISIS. Are you concerned about that activity, tourist activity in Iraq?
Well, first and foremost, as you mentioned, yes, indeed, we're part of the NATO coalition that is anti-Daesh in Iraq. I was recently in the region and also met with our forces that are based out of Kuwait. We believe that when it comes to the Middle East, we are concerned of escalation. That is why the violence must stop. We need to make sure also that we work with different partners on keeping the region much more stable. We've called for a ceasefire back in December. We've also been clear when it comes to the Middle East that the hostages must be released, and at the same time humanitarian aid needs to go into Gaza. So unfortunately a Canadian was killed in the IDF strike that targeted humanitarian workers from World Kitchen. My deepest condolences to their loved ones and family members. We call for a full investigation. We want to make sure that Israel looks directly into this issue. I've reached out last night to Israel Katz, my Israeli counterpart, on this very issue. Israel needs to respect international humanitarian law, and we will make sure that that is the case. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. We're coming together, we're celebrating 75 years of NATO's existence. For Latvia, it's 20 years within the NATO alliance. And what we have shown in these 75 years is that collective defense and deterrence works. There has been no war with a NATO country, with NATO in all of its existence. And that means looking forward, we have to build on this. Now, what we have in Europe right now is, unfortunately, going into its third year, a very real war. This is not a war between Russia and NATO, but this is a war between Russia and its neighbor Ukraine, Russia being in the business of trying to exterminate Ukraine in an extremely brutal fashion. So we have to, as NATO allies, individual countries, support Ukraine, and we have to do everything that we can so that Ukraine wins the war and Russia loses. But if we project ahead a little bit, even after the end of this war, Russia will be a long-term threat to European security, and not theoretically, but in a very real way. We see that Russia is currently providing about 40% of its budget this year for its army, for its internal security forces. This is a complete war footing. We're seeing Russia's military industry on a war footing, and we in NATO are not currently prepared for the longer term. So what we have to start talking about today, tomorrow, is what will be our long-term strategy to contain Russia, for lack of a better word. We have to accept the fact that Putin's Russia is not only dependent upon Putin, It is an entire society, it is an entire way of thinking, this imperialistic approach. And in order to check that, we on the NATO side have to be strong. We have to invest in our defense, so burden sharing is extremely important. Latvia is about 3% this year. We all have to get at least to 2%. We'll have to go beyond that. And we have to work seriously on increasing our military industrial capacity. It's clear that in times of conflict you need tanks, you need artillery, you need ammunition, and European NATO allies are much more capable than we are right now ready. So this is what we need to talk about, the long-term threat that Russia poses, and to take the appropriate steps today, all the while continuing our support for Ukraine.
Minister, the 100 billion funds that should come from additional money from the allies, when do you think it's going to be agreed, and where exactly shall the money come from, and how should it be shared among the allies?
Well, money would come from ally members. I think this is a very good proposal that the General Secretary has. This is a direction that we need to think of how we can pool our common resources to be more effective in aiding Ukraine.
How should it be distributed? Based on what?
Well, the normal distribution in any such a system would be a roughly proportional system. So one proposal which has been floated also elsewhere is a certain percent of GDP going towards support for Ukraine. So, for example, my government, we have 0.25% of our GDP going to support for Ukraine in this year. We're looking to continue that in the future as well. There are various ways to do it, but certainly if we all pitched in 0.25% of our GDP to supporting Ukraine, Ukraine's, shall we say, their monetary problems would all be solved.
Doesn't this come way too late?
As allies, we have been supporting Ukraine from the beginning. My country specifically, where about 1% of our GDP has gone to Ukraine, we're continuing. It's never too late to do the right thing. Russia is not winning this war, but they're also not yet losing this war. And we have to help Ukraine win the war. Russia is suffering extreme losses in manpower, in equipment, but this has no visible effect on Russian society, very unlike democratic societies. And that means that Ukrainians, their military has proven more than capable of doing the task. They're winning the war in the Black Sea, actually without a navy. They're winning the naval war in the Black Sea against a larger foe with better ships. They're still winning. They have fought back about half of the territory that Russia originally took. So the Ukrainians have the ability. They simply need our continued and unaltering aid.
Could a new Ukraine mission include one day boots on the ground, or is it totally out of question?
The suggestion coming from the French president is pointed in a very positive way of forcing us to think outside of the box and causing maybe a strategic dilemma for Russia as well. That is ambiguity. What is it that we do? And I do agree with the French president that somehow we publicly all the time say what we won't do, which makes it easier for Putin and his military to decide what they will do. I think it's better that maybe we stop talking about all the things that we don't do or won't do, and we focus on actually aiding Ukraine very practically, starting and continuing from today.
There'll be a discussion about North Korea and Russia and Iran's support for Russia. What exactly can NATO or the European Union do to prevent these transfers of weapons?
Well, we already see, unfortunately, that there is a rather clear triangle with Russia, Iran and North Korea, both Iran and North Korea supplying weapons and ammunition to Russia, which is then using these weapons and ammunition to try to destroy Ukraine. So that is a very real cooperation, which is a grave concern to everyone. What needs to go out from NATO is strength. Russia, in all of our history and observing our neighbor for hundreds and hundreds of years, unfortunately, this country and the current regime only understands force. And force means visible strength. So we need to invest in our own defense to have a credible deterrent so that there could be no miscalculation from Russia's side. And also clear support for Ukraine so that Russia understands that that aid is and will be forthcoming.
Sorry, concretely, what can we do? What can you do to prevent weapon transfers from North Korea and Iran?
It's a broader issue, I think, that deals with sanctions and sanctions avoidance also. And we do have, and this is not maybe a NATO, this is more a European Union and other ally effort of imposing various sanctions on Russia, but we have lots of cracks in the worldwide system of trade, and this is what we need to work on. But as NATO allies, what we need to focus on today and tomorrow is what can we and what must we do to strengthen our collective defense and deterrence? What is our long-term strategy for containing Russia into the future? And what more can we do to aid Ukraine today? I think these are the main topics we need to discuss.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lower. You're almost in the face of the ministers, which is not nice, and it also doesn't make use for the sound. I can put it a little bit closer, then it's easier for you. Can you take it away?
Noch eine Angel
This one away?
größer machen.
Can you... And try to keep your microphones a bit lower.
Good morning.
Good morning. So it's a very good day for Finland. We are now celebrating our first full year as members in NATO, and indeed our membership became complete a couple of weeks ago when Sweden, our good friends, also became a member in NATO. And obviously we will be celebrating the 75 years of the alliance as well. Now, we look forward to discussing all the elements needed for aiding Ukraine for the long term, and as steadfast as we have been doing. And Finland, of course, as a fresh NATO member, is not only fully committed to fulfilling the 2% defense spending criteria, we also expect that to find further traction with all the other members in the coming months. And as urgently as possible as well. And Finland, of course, looks forward to contributing to the alliance as such, also by us protecting, of course, 1,300 kilometers of border towards Russia, but also by contributing with peacetime operations. So looking forward to a very fruitful meeting.
How supportive are you of the proposal to put up an additional fund of 100 billion euros to support Ukraine?
The Finnish position is very clear. We need long-term sustainable commitments for aiding Ukraine, but also towards paving the pathway to NATO and EU memberships. What comes to details and also what comes to possible overlaps with different other formats and also different other funds, but also financing bilaterally, say the European Union, bilateral funding, we need to sort those out. But the principle is something that Finland full-heartedly supports.
And how much percentage of GDP would Finland, for example, be willing to contribute?
That would be under discussion. We currently contribute 0.25% of our GDP for aiding Ukraine, and we are at least in the top 10, I would say. And we have also very strongly been negotiating our long-term commitments with Ukraine as well.
argue that a possible administration of Trump too would undermine efforts to actually help Ukraine in this war.
I'm not speculating with any outcome of the election. This conflict failed. This future democracy without outcome of the election. That's what the population wants. That is exactly what it should do. But I think from a European perspective, there's no way around strengthening the movement of defense and terrorism.
Thank you. Amidst the terrible events in Gaza in the last few days, it is important we keep a focus on Ukraine. And that's why I'm here at the NATO meetings for the next few days. It's absolutely vital that Britain and other countries in this alliance get the weapons, ammunition, and get the support to Ukraine that they need. It is vital for us that Ukraine wins and Putin loses. It's not just an investment in their defence and their security, it's an investment in our defence and our security. We will be safer in Britain if we ensure the right outcome to this conflict. And it's vital we talk about that over the two coming days. It's also important that we commemorate the 75th anniversary of this alliance, the most successful defensive alliance in history. And NATO is strong and is getting stronger. Today we'll be having the first time a Swedish foreign minister has attended this meeting as a full member of NATO. And with Sweden and Finland joining, NATO has become stronger. The most important thing we can do to make sure this alliance continues to grow and continues to strengthen is to ensure that we all spend over 2% of our GDP on defence. Many more countries are now doing that, and we need every country to do that. Frankly, that's the best thing we can do to make sure the NATO summit in Washington this summer is a success, and it's also the best way to prepare for the American elections in the autumn, whatever their outcome may be. Turning to the situation in Israel and Gaza, the dreadful events of the last 2 days are a moment when we should mourn the loss of these brave humanitarian workers, including the 3 British citizens that tragically were killed. We should also send our condolences to their families, and our thoughts should be with them. I welcome what the Israeli Foreign Minister said yesterday to me about a full, urgent and transparent inquiry into how this dreadful event was allowed to happen. And we want to see that happen very, very quickly. I also welcome the fact that he spoke about much more aid getting into Gaza, up to 500 trucks a day. That is essential. We've been promised these things before, and it really needs to happen, including longer opening times at the vital crossing points. But of course, the extra aid won't work unless there is proper deconfliction, unless aid can be taken around Gaza, and we avoid the dreadful incidents like we've seen in the last couple of days. That is vital, and Britain will be watching very closely to make sure that that happens. Thank you very much.
Ça pile pas, c'est bon ici ou ça va?
Un tout petit peu plus par là, mais c'est trop près de l'autre, tu vois, c'est ça le problème.
Le son, ça va. C'est mieux?
C'est mieux.
Der wollte noch mehr fahren, noch mehr fahren, noch mehr fahren. Also der hätte auch noch 3 fahren können. Ist auch ein bisschen verliebt.
Aber noch verliebter ist sie in den Typen, der hinter ihr steht.
Buenos días. Esta va a ser una reunión ministerial de la OTAN especialmente importante con respecto a las que hemos tenido en los últimos años. Nos enfrentamos al inicio del tercer año de guerra de agresión de Rusia a Ucrania y por lo tanto va a ser muy importante que hoy todos los aliados redoblemos nuestro compromiso con Ucrania, con su integridad territorial, con su soberanía y finalmente con los principios de la Carta de Naciones Unidas que condenan claramente las guerras de agresión. Desde luego, España va a estar entre aquellos, e inmediatamente después de hablar con ustedes voy a tener una reunión bilateral con mi homólogo y mi buen amigo, el ministro de Asuntos Exteriores de Ucrania, Dmytro Kuleba, en el que le voy a trasladar lo mismo que trasladaré después en la sala al resto de nuestros aliados, que España sigue al lado de Ucrania y que lo va a estar de todas las maneras posibles, tanto tiempo como sea necesario, hasta que la paz regrese a las fronteras de Ucrania. También va a ser una reunión importante para analizar las amenazas que vienen desde el flanco sur a los aliados de la OTAN. Es un concepto que se introduce precisamente en la Cumbre de Madrid a iniciativa española. Vamos a escuchar las reflexiones y las conclusiones del informe que el grupo de expertos en el cual ha participado España han estado redactando a lo largo de estos meses para trazar líneas de actuación que se pueda presentar ya en Washington en la cumbre de jefes de Estado y de Gobierno. Y, por supuesto, más allá de la situación en Ucrania, mañana habrá un Consejo OTAN-Ucrania en el cual trataremos también bilateralmente esta situación. Analizaremos la amenaza que puede suponer Rusia en estos momentos para la seguridad euroatlántica. Son temas cruciales, especialmente al inicio de este tercer año de guerra y fundamentales para la seguridad euroatlántica y, desde luego, España no va a regatear esfuerzos para que la paz regrese a Europa, para que la estabilidad regrese a Europa y, por supuesto, para que se cumplan los más elementales y más básicos principios de la Carta de Naciones Unidas, como es el respeto a la integridad territorial, el respeto a la soberanía y a la igualdad soberana de todos los Estados y también la abolición de la guerra como forma de resolver conflictos entre Estados. Y quedo a su disposición para cualquier pregunta que quieran.
¿Qué piensa España de la propuesta de Jens Stoltenberg de destinar un fondo de 100.000 millones de euros en los próximos 5 años para Ucrania?
Nosotros ya en el seno de la Unión Europea hemos sido favorables a que haya previsibilidad en la entrega de fondos a Ucrania. Lo que tenemos que ver es cuál es el mix, la mezcla mejor de apoyo a Ucrania por parte de todos nosotros, que tiene que hacer la OTAN, que tiene que hacer la Unión Europea, que tenemos que hacer bilateralmente. Pero, desde luego, la reflexión de que Ucrania tiene que tener previsibilidad en la entrega de fondos y en la entrega de material para la defensa de sus civiles indefensos y de su soberanía, desde luego es un aspecto positivo y nosotros hemos estado desde el principio, desde el inicio de la guerra de agresión, en esa línea.
¿Y le parece bien que el punto de partida de este debate sean esos 100.000 millones?
El punto en concreto, el monto que tiene que ser, yo creo que lo que tenemos que valorar es, en estos momentos, mañana vendrá el alto representante Josep Borrell también a hablar con nosotros, tenemos que ver cómo podemos hacer un reparto que sea el mejor para Ucrania. Lo importante es que Ucrania reciba todo aquello que necesita. Ese es el punto en el que España está y lo intentamos hacer tanto desde nuestra aportación a la Unión Europea como lo que hacemos, por supuesto, bilateralmente, como lo vamos a hacer hoy también aquí en esta reflexión en la OTAN. Lo importante es mantener ese compromiso tanto tiempo como sea necesario y que ese compromiso, que no podía ser más que de una forma rápida y urgente en los primeros momentos, porque era una guerra de agresión inesperada, que pase a ser algo estructurado y previsible para Ucrania.
Pero también en el marco de la OTAN, ¿es favorable que se cree un fondo en el marco de la OTAN o partidario de que solo exista en la Unión?
Podemos valorarlo, por supuesto, pero yo creo que lo que no hay que hacer en ningún caso es duplicar esfuerzos. No hay que duplicar bilateralmente aquello que se puede hacer mejor conjuntamente en la Unión Europea y no hay que duplicar en la OTAN lo que hace la Unión Europea. Y, por supuesto, son organizaciones distintas con fines distintos, pero que hay que tener esa reflexión, desde luego, y te daré cuenta de ello cuando termine todos nuestros debates.
Usted habla de reparto, ¿insinúa un posible fondo conjunto UE-OTAN?
No hablo de un fondo conjunto, lo que hablo es de que no haya duplicidades, que no hagamos cada uno por nuestra cuenta cosas distintas, sino que todos aquellos que tenemos el mismo objetivo y que somos la mayoría, todos los que queremos que la paz regrese lo antes posible, que termine esta guerra, pero que termine con una paz justa, con una paz que respete la soberanía y la integridad territorial de Ucrania, hablemos y pongamos sobre la mesa aquello que se está haciendo para que lo hagamos más eficazmente. Por eso somos también favorables a una integración de la industria de defensa europea. España es un país que tiene una industria de defensa importante, precisamente para hacer lo mismo, pero hacerlo de manera más eficaz y más previsible. Les tengo que dejar porque voy a tener un encuentro con mi colega Dimitro Kuleva, pero última pregunta.
¿Puedes confirmarnos si España va a apoyar el ingreso del Estado palestino como miembro de pleno derecho en la ONU?
El presidente ha sido muy claro. Nosotros vamos a reconocer a Palestina como un Estado soberano. Por lo tanto, un Estado soberano tiene su lugar entre todas las naciones y todos los Estados soberanos del planeta en las Naciones Unidas. Pero no adelantemos acontecimientos, ese debate ya llegará. Muchas gracias.
Okay. Ready? Good afternoon. This is a historic NATO ministerial, and not only because NATO celebrates its landmark 75th anniversary, but because as we welcome Sweden, we enhance our unity and defense capability for the first time as a 32 members alliance. Our focus is set on the issues that will shape the deliverables of the upcoming Washington summit in July. A key agenda is to build on the collective commitment to burden sharing, with North Macedonia leading by example, meeting the Wales summit target, and our goal is not only to maintain but to increase our defense investment to 2.15% by 2025. Our resolve to support Ukraine remains steadfast. Our unity and determination are our strength in advocating a substantial assistance for Ukraine, confronting the challenges posed by the Russian aggression. And certainly these the challenges have broader implication, with Ukraine being just a part of Russia's imperial ambition, threatening Moldova, Georgia and Western Balkans. And this necessitates synchronized action between NATO and the EU, emphasizing the urgency of accelerated European and Euro-Atlantic integration in order to safeguard our collective security. Thank you so much.
Minister, how much would North Macedonia be willing to contribute to an additional €100 billion fund to support Ukraine in the long term?
Well, as you know, North Macedonia has been an unequivocal supporter of Ukraine. It has been assessed that it is one of the first four countries in NATO for providing military support to Ukraine per capita. We have aligned 100% with EU for common foreign security policies in terms of introducing sanctions to Russia, and we will continue to do so. I cannot mention numbers today, but certainly our resolve is steadfast in supporting Ukraine financially, militarily, and politically. Thank you so much.
An extra optical inch.
How long is the cable? You can get the time you reach the destination. So big away. You are doing the best. Is het niet impossible om door de blauwe lijn te staan en daar weer te kijken? Ja, maar we staan. Ja, ja, ik zie het. We gaan met z'n tweeën over de doellijn. Du kennst het, hè?
Wie das uns passiert? Wir machen das morgen mit dem Wochenende, wo wir das entscheiden. Und Harry ist auch eben beim Niemerschmidt. Wir haben die 14 Uhr Deadline, glaube ich, ausnutzen müssen. Für uns oder für Harry? Für die Tagesschau. Ja.
Pour l'instant, ça va. Tant qu'il n'y a personne.
Je vois les gars commencent à casser les couilles, moi je commence à prendre. Der kriegt irgendwie nicht so gut. Kennt auch keinen Plan. Ja. Ja. Gibt es Temperatur? Sorry. Weil du vorhin meintest auch. lasse es einfach mal. Wir rechnen einfach mal. Weil wir gesagt haben, DR machen wir nicht wegen der Transaktion und Hintergrund kannst du irgendwie nicht wegen der Transaktion. Dann habe ich das bei mir so manifestiert. Ursprung, Selbstbefehl, Gott.
No, no, le mic lo va con el lápiz. Le mic es
Were you laughing? Hallo, ich bin hier, ich stelle die Frage, hier im Namen einer deutschen Familie und dann bin ich wieder weg. Tschüss. Und um den Rest kümmert ihr euch bitte, weil Uli ist irgendwo. Ja, genau. Ja, klar. Aber mit so einem Selbstverständnis auch. Und dann kacken sie sich an, wenn Britta mal vor ihren anderen Nutzern. Nikita. Sag ich dir ganz oft.
Meeting starts in 1 hour. One.
Ja, wenn wir dann noch bis Starbuck, Stunde. Die Schalte. Ja, könnte ich ja machen, oder?
Kommt doch ein Käse, oder?
Ja, zwischendurch hast du eh gemerkt.
So for my kids.
Wenn die da stehen, kann ich nichts mehr. Das ist irgendwie echt schwer. Und dann bin ich auch noch ein bisschen gekränkt, weil ich hier ständig nicht so toll. Lage ich richtig in meinem 10-Uhr-Chillen, Stoltenberg, der Kohle. Dann hatten wir Finnland, Nordmazedonien, Spanien, Lettland, Ukraine.
I apologize.
Na gut, dann kommt auch Wermut.
Six more days, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, 6 or 7, yeah. Yeah, it's almost done.
They come down and Brian.
und Frankreich. Ich müsste eigentlich noch was sagen. Steht da nicht so drin. Schön. Ja, oder es ist um die Live-Liste.
No, I don't want to get in trouble. No, I know, but I just checked into it.
For
It's funny.
technical stuff.
What's that?
For technical stuff.
Oh, I know. It's in the video. You can see it in the video.
Da habe ich mal
There's
so
no replacement
reingeschrieben,
for
ich
a
weiß
human
nicht
being.
genau.
We try it all the time, but
Die Leitung
you always need a
der
human being to do our job because it gets messy. Every ministerial, they try something different, but it doesn't replace the person with the microphone.
Are you going to stay there? Because I cannot see the doors.
Maybe that's
Oh, no, I'm good,
Sure?
thank you. Yeah, I'm sure. Sugar makes me crush.
Okay, heute doch wieder hier.
12h50. Sylvain, tu sais si... I don't see a lot of camera women.
Non, je sais pas. Il voyageait pas avec Blinken, il est dans un problème d'avion.
It's possible that now cameras are like
Mais maintenant,
How long have you been using You do look young.
That's the best compliment. You still look young.
I would not expect
8 years of journalism, you still look young.
7.
Das kann gut sein, weil Sylvain meinte gerade, konnten fliegen von Paris. Blinken war ja gestern im Paris. Und die steckt irgendwie fest und fahren jetzt mit dem Auto. Also kann sein, dass es spät kommt.
Everybody's from somewhere else here.
Yeah. No. Actually, I'm now doing my internship with Al Jazeera. So,
And you like to film?
yeah. But I mostly do the lives in the office. Outdoor, I'm helping with photo, but I'm not like camera anymore. Because there's a person who's doing that. But yeah,
An opportunity just happens one day and
Yeah.
it changes, right? Right? You stick with it and people will see you as somebody who's capable and familiar and they're like, okay, you know where to go, you know what to do, go do it. And, you know, it just happens. So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you still hoping to ask a question to David Cameron?
I came too late for that. But he clearly wasn't taking it.
I came too early for it. He never has.
Who else is to come? Does Pistorius be? Oh, he's not.
Baerbock. She's
Yeah.
coming at 12:50. I mean, she's expected at
12:15.
50.
I've got to get my head round which ministers these are, but anyways.
It's the one in front of the microphone.
Yeah. You I often have to ask his
Selbstfahrerbetrieb, funktionsfähig. Selbstfahrer, NATO-Technik. Aber das ist zu privat.
Bulgaria. Bulgaria. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Minister Gabriel.
Good afternoon to all. Maybe just a few messages. First of all, I'm really very pleased to be here. That will be my last meeting as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bulgaria. Of course, we are all here to reaffirm our firm support to Ukraine. We very much expect that during the Washington summit, all of us will be able to ensure sustainable and predictable support for Ukraine. For Bulgaria will continue to support Ukraine as long as it takes. Of course, as Bulgarian minister, for me it will be important to touch a word on the strategic importance of the Black Sea region. I think that's more than important. And of course, not to lose Western Balkans, because their place is within our family, the family of EU and NATO, and Bulgaria will continue to support them. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nadine Scarlett, dann kommt doch ein Baerbock rein. Nadine Scarlett, die ist in den blauen Pulli. bisschen Solidarität.
أنا كان متابع الكلام. لا ما وقفت قدام الكل ما أنا عم شوفك كمان بعد عن ناتو ما نزل. أنا عم شوف بعد ما نزل. أول واحد نزلوا ورجع نزلوا هلا وراء الأمين العام. لما كانت سلبية كان بعده وقت.
Deutsche Welle. Da kommt steht so, dass du Blickkontakt ja wiederum alles, oder? Ja, wenn ihr das überzeugt vom Grundsatz, dann ist das nicht schiefgegangen. Bei uns war alles. Sorry, wir waren zwar vielleicht eine halbe Stunde später als im Zeitplan, aber wir sind alle akkreditiert, wir sind alle reingekommen, wir haben eure Live-Show dabei. Ich habe euer Mikrofon, zumindest im Bild. Ich möchte keine Klagen, keine Kommentare.
Nee, also ich habe einfach kurz. Ui, das ist schon gefährlich genug.
Nee, aber ich weiß ja nicht, wie also welcher Kanal eurer Live-View und so weiter ist, ne? Das hat sich auch nicht gestellt. Ja, danach. Aber anfänglich war es ja.
Wir sind immer die Empfänger stehen. Die Empfänger da stehen.
Ja, richtig. Oder? Also das Backup ist immer gut.
A small microphone cable, short one like this long, put on there. Otherwise, the weight of the transmitter on the bottom there.
Like yours.
Yeah.
Ja, nach dem Lima machen wir vielleicht also in der Kantine, oder? Würde noch Ah, okay. Ja, eigentlich ja, aber Nadine Skala war eben hier und meinte, gelandet. Ja, oder? Das könnte akzeptiert sein.
Umwelteinflüsse auf eine bestimmte staatliche Angestellte. Selbst für Aufstehen, also die Haare wahrscheinlich. Bei uns ist es auch Est-ce que c'est... Oui, 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 donc comme normal. J'ai pas de...
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Thank you.
She's gonna talk.
Bonjour tout le monde. C'est un moment historique pour l'OTAN puisque nous célébrons le 75e anniversaire de cette alliance qui est fondée sur une promesse solennelle, celle qu'une attaque contre un seul membre est une attaque contre tous, et Cette promesse qui fait de cette alliance le meilleur rempart contre la guerre. Et grâce à cela, nous sommes parvenus en 75 ans à protéger quelques 1 milliard de citoyens de la guerre. Une protection que nous continuons à renforcer parce qu'il est clair qu'aujourd'hui, plus qu'hier, cette paix qu'on croyait acquise semble plus que jamais en danger. Et nous allons donc nous réunir encore une fois pour prendre en considération les différents conflits que nous avons, pour certains d'ailleurs au bord de nos frontières, certains qui nous inquiètent fortement. Je pense évidemment à l'invasion de l'Ukraine, à la guerre que mène la Russie actuellement. Vous savez que le secrétaire général Jens Stoltenberg a fait une proposition d'une enveloppe, de constituer une enveloppe de 100 milliards sur 5 ans. On va analyser la faisabilité de cette proposition. Il n'y a pas de décision qui va être prise pour l'instant, mais il s'agit de nous préparer en fait au sommet de Washington qui aura lieu donc en juillet. Et il est clair qu'aujourd'hui la Russie est une des principales menaces pour nous, pour les alliés. On va analyser aussi avec nos partenaires de l'Indo-Pacifique lors d'un conseil Indo-Pacifique ce qu'on peut aussi envisager avec eux en matière de cyberattaque, en matière aussi de contrôle des armes et évidemment un autre conflit qui sera soulevé certainement, c'est le conflit qui fait rage à l'heure actuelle au Moyen-Orient et particulièrement la situation humanitaire à Gaza. Je reviens moi-même de la région. Évidemment, les pourparlers de paix continuent. On va faire le point avec Anthony Blinken, entre autres. Vous savez qu'il y a une résolution qui a été votée aux Nations Unies qui demande un cessez-le-feu qui n'a aucun impact sur le terrain, ce qui pose aussi la question des leviers dont on dispose encore à l'heure actuelle pour imposer un cessez-le-feu. Hier encore, 7 travailleurs humanitaires ont perdu la vie. Nous sommes accusés de double standard. C'est toutes ces questions qu'il faut oser aborder avec courage entre nous. Et puis, voilà, je reste ouverte à vos questions. If you have any questions. This 75th anniversary, I have to say that will only reinforce our commitment that our vision of the world lead by law and not by force. So we will have a Ukraine NATO Council with Dmytro Kuleba, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. We will address the situation on the ground, the Ukraine's needs for now, but also for the futures. Jens Stoltenberg will propose to allocate 100 billion euros for the next 5 years. We will envisage the feasibility of this proposition among us. NATO is 32 allies, but it is also 35 partners, so we will have also a council with our partners from the Indo-Pacific. We will discuss about armed controls, about new technologies, about cyber attacks as well, and we will also discuss about the situation in the Middle East. The risk of a spillover is more present than ever. Many allies are very worried and concerned about the humanitarian situation on the ground. I was myself in the Middle East last week. We have asked since months for an immediate ceasefire. This is also what is demanded by a resolution from the United Nations, but unfortunately without any consequences on the ground, which poses the question of our real leverages to stop the violence in the regions while we are accusing of double standards. So it will be a very important council, ministerial council, on preparation of the summit for Washington this summer.
Minister, on NATO's plan for Ukraine, $100 billion, does Belgium support that idea?
We will discuss. What is important is to keep in mind that this is not charity. This is an investment to our own protection. So this is very important. But on the other hand, it's dangerous to make promises that we can't keep. So we will discuss how to distribute, how to contribute, how can we contribute between the member states to this provision.
Votre homologue anglais, David Cameron, il a dit que l'Ukraine est aussi proche que jamais d'un membership, d'une candidature à l'OTAN, mais la plupart des alliés semblent avoir des opinions différentes là-dessus. Pourquoi a-t-il fait cette émission?
Alors ça, il faut lui demander à lui. Mais ce qui est certain, c'est que on a déjà ce Conseil OTAN-Ukraine qui va avoir lieu. On va envisager les meilleures façons de renforcer notre aide à l'Ukraine, qui est de nouveau, comme je viens de le dire, n'est pas une charité, mais la meilleure façon aussi de renforcer notre protection, parce qu'il est clair que Poutine ne s'arrêtera pas à l'Ukraine et qu'il a des ambitions qui déborderont le territoire de l'Ukraine. D'autres pays comme la Moldavie, comme la Géorgie sont déjà menacés dans leur territoire. Donc nous devons avoir cela en tête et nous allons envisager les différentes possibilités de renforcer, d'harmoniser, d'être plus efficace dans notre aide allouée à l'Ukraine, en harmonisant et en donnant un meilleur contrôle, une meilleure coordination pour éviter en fait les doublons, et aussi avec l'Union européenne et l'OSCE.
Et plus concrètement, en revenant sur la question du fonds de 100 milliards d'euros pour l'Ukraine, quel pourcentage est-ce que la Belgique pourrait envisager de contribuer à un tel fonds?
Alors je crois que ce qui est envisagé pour l'instant, c'est une contribution selon le PIB de chaque pays allié. Et donc voilà, la discussion est ouverte. On est là pour vraiment envisager les différentes pistes, voir ce qu'on peut mettre sur la table. Vous savez que la Belgique, par exemple, a créé un fonds spécifique à l'Ukraine d'1,7 milliard. En fait, nous avons pris les taxes sur les bénéfices des avoirs gelés sur notre territoire, en réalité Euroclear. Et donc voilà, c'est déjà 1,7 milliard qui sont alloués à l'Ukraine, et donc on va voir comment on peut aller plus loin, évidemment.
What consequences would you like to be imposed on Israel, given what's going on? You've spoken quite strongly about it. And when would Belgium be ready to recognise Palestine as a state?
The recognition of Palestine is in our governmental agreement. So it is something that we will consider when the moment is come. I think that it's important to not recognize Palestine for a symbolic gesture, but more for a concrete evolution on the ground, and a recognition with a full status of a state. This is something that I really cherish.
In terms of consequences, what would you like to see the European Union do?
So for consequences and for sanctions, we need unanimity. As you know, this is how it works in the European Union, and we have already taken sanctions against violent settlers. So we have a list in common with the United States to condemn and to sanction the violent settlers in the West Bank.
Des sanctions contre les plaines d'Israël, c'est envisageable?
Merci.
Sorry, Christian. Achtung, Florian. Achtung. Müssen Sie aber kurz sagen, den Mikro auf Linie bringen. Ganz ehrlich.
this is Slovenia.
Good morning, Minister.
Good morning.
Good afternoon, Minister.
Det är lite trevligt att vara här naturligtvis. Mycket glädjande att få delta i det här utrikesministermötet för första gången som representant för Sverige som fullvärdig medlem av NATO. Vi är bekanta med agendan. Det viktigaste och mest betydelsefulla med det här mötet är att det är en upptakt till toppmötet i Washington. Det känns på måndag i juli och det innebär att många av frågorna som är viktigt. Toppmötet i Washington är betydelsefullt för NATO för att kunna visa upp enighet och styrka och i det så är ju stödet
Ja, ganz kurz, die sehen wir
och därför kommer också Ukraina att vara den viktiga frågan på dagordningen. Sverige vill se en utveckling av ett långsiktigt och det militära stödet det är också betydelsefullt att se Ukraina som ett uttryck för behovet av att stoppa Rysslands maktexpansion och dess försök att destabilisera oss som allians och destabilisera världen och också för regelbaserade världsordning. Jag vill också understryka att vi imorgon kommer att ha ett möte med den Indo-Pacifiska det kommer att vara betydelsefullt för att få
So, any questions? Anything?
When will you send the first shell?
So this is a very important ministerial meeting. We are seeking to prepare alliance for the NATO summit in July. So we will discuss announced topics. And of course, I will present Czech abolition initiative. I will also speak about the specific measures which we are taking in Czechia against Russian influence.
In which way would the Czech Republic be willing to support the proposal of Secretary General to provide another 100 billion fund for Ukraine?
We have to look at the proposal. We have to look in a detail of that. It's nice to have a big vision, and we support such a vision, but practicalities always matters. We know that from different kind of negotiations which are held regularly in the EU in a similar setup. So we need to see that plan and discuss it also internally. But generally, yes, we need to support Ukraine.
The Secretary General seemed quite confident that there would be an agreement at the latest at the Washington summit this summer. Do you share this optimism?
I cannot comment more on that than we have to. Yeah?
Where are you in the funding of shells for Ukraine?
We need more money. We need more money for those shells. We need more shells for Ukraine because still Russia is able to produce a lot, much more than Ukraine is able to have on the front line. So sadly in a war this mathematics matters. So if we want Ukraine to be able to defend itself from Russian aggression, it's also up to this initiative to send ammunition to Ukraine. So I'm calling on basically everyone to join and pledge money.
And so far, how many shells are actually
We are not
funded?
disclosing that number currently.
I think you've said that the first batch of 250,000 has
sorry?
been ordered. I think a Czech official has already said that the first batch of 250,000 shells has been fully funded, and that now
That's true. 300,000 of that is funded, but this is just part of that. And there is much more which can be done. So, but this is quite old figure already.
How much more money do you need?
I think this is a question more for the Minister of Defense, and we are dealing this on a bilateral means. No figure as such. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Schönen guten Tag, Frau Ministerin.
Ich darf Sie zum Statement der Außenministerin begrüßen. Danach gibt es die Gelegenheit für 2 Fragen. Frau Außenministerin.
Schönen guten Tag. 75 Jahre NATO bedeutet 75 Jahre Sicherheitsanker zwischen Ost und West für Deutschland seit 1955, für Westdeutschland seit 1955 und für Gesamtdeutschland seit 1990. 75 Jahre NATO ist mehr als ein Verteidigungsbündnis. Es ist der Schutz für unsere Freiheit, für unsere Demokratie. Gerade in diesen Zeiten wurde das noch mal deutlich unterstrichen mit dem russischen Angriffskrieg auf die Ukraine und auf die europäische Friedensordnung, dass die NATO nicht nur mit Blick auf unsere Sicherheit, sondern auch für unsere Freiheit und unsere Demokratie unser gemeinsamer Sicherheitsanker ist. Deswegen ist es wichtig, dass wir jetzt zu diesem 75 Jahre Jubiläum 32 Mitglieder endlich sind, auch mit Schweden an Bord. Denn gerade die Länder, die in der Vergangenheit darauf gezählt haben, dass unsere gemeinsame europäische Sicherheitsarchitektur auch für zukünftige Generationen steht und in direkter Nachbarschaft zu Russland liegen, auch sie brauchen eine Sicherheitsgarantie für ihre Freiheit, für ihre Demokratie. In diesen so turbulenten Zeiten mit dem russischen Angriffskrieg ist es für uns zentral, dass wir dieses 75-jährige Jubiläum eben nicht nur feiern, sondern dass wir in unsere eigene Sicherheit zum Schutz unserer Freiheit und Demokratie investieren. Das bedeutet für uns erstens als Europäer, dass wir den europäischen Pfeiler innerhalb dieses transatlantischen Bündnisses stärken. Deutschland stellt dafür in diesem Jahr 2,1% seines Bruttoinlandsproduktes bereit. Und mit unserer Brigade in Litauen untermauern wir, dass wir für die Sicherheit unserer osteuropäischen Nachbarn einstehen. Denn gerade sie sind in ihren Zeiten darauf angewiesen, dass das Versprechen der NATO einer für alle und alle für einen gilt. Zweitens ist es zentral, dass wir in unsere eigenen Rüstungsfähigkeiten, in unsere eigenen Verteidigungsfähigkeiten investieren. Im Lichte dieses hybriden Angriffs Russlands auf die europäische Friedensordnung, gerade auch in neue Technologien. Und dass wir drittens die Ukraine weiter mit allem, was wir haben, unterstützen. Denn auch sie sichert unsere Freiheit, unsere Demokratie und unseren Frieden. Daher werden wir natürlich auf diesem NATO-Außenministertreffen nicht nur das 75-jährige Jubiläum entsprechend ein bisschen feiern, sondern vor allen Dingen unsere gemeinsame Sicherheit stärken, die Unterstützung der Ukraine weiter ausbauen, denn die Ukraine steht ein für unsere Sicherheit, für unsere Freiheit, für unseren gemeinsamen Schutz. Und unsere Sicherheit und unsere Freiheit, die brauchen Verlässlichkeit. Das bedeutet Verlässlichkeit in der Unterstützung für die Ukraine. Das bedeutet Verlässlichkeit in der Finanzierung der Ukraine-Unterstützung. Und das bedeutet Verlässlichkeit in den NATO-Strukturen selbst. Auch dazu werden wir als Deutschland, auch dazu werden wir als Europäer in Zukunft einen größeren Beitrag leisten.
Frau Ministerin, befürwortet die deutsche Bundesregierung die Vorschläge des Generalsekretärs für einen 100 Milliarden Euro Fonds für die nächsten 5 Jahre für die Ukraine und für die NATO-Mission Ukraine, die ja die Aufgaben der Rammstein-Gruppe übernehmen soll?
Es war essentiell, dass wir vor gut 2 Jahren auch hier in Brüssel als NATO-Außenminister deutlich gemacht haben, wir werden als Verteidigungsbündnis unsere Sicherheit, unsere Freiheit in Europa schützen und deswegen die Ukraine, die diese Freiheit, die diese Sicherheit auch für uns verteidigt, mit allem, was wir haben, unterstützen. Diese Strukturen, die wir damals ad hoc geschaffen haben, zum Beispiel Ausbildung, zum Beispiel Training, zum Beispiel Planung, die jetzt in wirklich strukturierte, verlässliche, langfristige Strukturen zu gießen, das ist richtig und wichtig. Entsprechend haben wir das als Außenminister innerhalb der NATO für diesen heutigen Zusammenkunft vorbereitet und diskutiert. Entsprechend unterstützen wir das auch. Wie das so oft ist bei internationalen Texten, ist dann immer die Frage, und wie nennt man das Kind? Für uns ist essentiell, dass wir die Ad-hoc-Strukturen zur Ausbildung, zur Koordinierung in verlässliche Strukturen gießen. Man kann das auf Deutsch Einheit, Unit, zentrale Koordinierung nennen. Der Begriff ist nicht das Entscheidende, sondern die verlässlichen Strukturen. Und das unterstützen wir. Entsprechend haben wir auch die Vorbereitung hier mit auf den Weg gebracht.
Ebenso braucht Sicherheit und Freiheit verlässliche finanzielle Unterstützung. Auch das haben wir in den letzten 2 Jahren gemeinsam ausgebaut. Wichtig ist hier, dass wir die Prozesse zwischen EU und NATO nicht duplizieren. Deswegen halte ich es jetzt nicht für sinnvoll, wieder über einzelne Größen hier zu diskutieren und in der Luft zu jonglieren, wenn man Ad-hoc-Contributions mit einbezieht, wenn man bereits Geleistetes mit einbezieht. Deswegen sind wir genau hier 2 Tage lang, dass wir das in Ruhe gemeinsam besprechen können. Aber vollkommen klar ist, auch für die Bundesregierung, wir brauchen Verlässlichkeit für Sicherheit, finanziell, materiell und vor allen Dingen mit der klaren Unterstützung der Ukraine, weil es geht hier um unsere eigene Sicherheit, um unsere eigene Freiheit. Und das ist mir besonders wichtig. Wir leben im Herzen Europas als Deutsche, wie wir jetzt feststellen, zu unserem großen, großen Glück. Und wir müssen uns vielleicht gerade bei 75 Jahren NATO immer wieder auch in die Schuhe der anderen, unserer osteuropäischen Nachbarländer, aber auch der nordeuropäischen Nachbarländer stellen. Wenn man eine ewig lange Grenze mit Russland hat, wenn man einen Suwałki-Korridor hat, dann ist eine abstrakte Gefährdungslage eben was komplett anderes. Da sind einzelne Luftraumübertretungen auch was anderes. Und deswegen möchte ich hier unterstreichen, auch für die deutsche Sicherheit ist die Sicherheit unserer osteuropäischen Nachbarn absolut zentral. Und wie ich im Baltikum vor 1,5 Jahren deutlich gemacht habe, wir stehen ein für die Sicherheit und Freiheit jedes Zentimeters des gemeinsamen NATO-Territoriums.
Aber das heißt, Sie wollen kein neues, frisches Geld jetzt bereitstellen im Rahmen einer NATO-Mission Ukraine. Also 100 Milliarden klingt natürlich toll, aber wenn es nur altes Geld ist damit niemandem geholfen.
Wir als Bundesregierung, insbesondere der Bundeskanzler, haben ja immer wieder deutlich gemacht, dass wir alle Hebel in Bewegung setzen, sei es bei gemeinsamer Munitionsbeschaffung, bei gemeinsamer Produktion und dass wir gerade als Deutsche dafür auch die finanziellen Mittel bereitstellen. Bekannt ist, 32 Milliarden an ziviler und vor allen Dingen militärischer Unterstützung haben wir als Bundesrepublik bereits geleistet. Es ist auch vollkommen klar, dass wir weitere Zahlungen leisten müssen. Nochmal, nicht zur Unterstützung der Ukraine allein, sondern um in unseren eigenen Schutz zu investieren. Ich habe ja bereits auch rund um die Münchner Sicherheitskonferenz deutlich gemacht, dass der Schutz unserer Freiheit, dass der Schutz unserer Demokratie nicht nur gelten muss bis zum nächsten Wahltermin, sondern auch für die Zukunft unserer Kinder. Und deswegen sind das langfristige Planungen, die sich nicht in einjährige Haushalte oder in eine Schuldenbremse gießen lassen, sondern Sicherheit braucht Verlässlichkeit. Und deswegen diskutieren wir ja gerade auch bei uns in Ruhe, aber vor allen Dingen hinter verschlossenen Türen, wie wir diese finanzielle Sicherheit für unsere Demokratie und unsere Freiheit auch absichern können im Lichte unseres Grundgesetzes. Wir haben schon einmal ein Sondervermögen auf den Weg gebracht. Das wäre eine Möglichkeit. Es ist die Möglichkeit, dass wir die Frage von einem Sicherheitshaushalt anders definieren. Nämlich klar ist auch, dass Cyberattacken Teil der russischen Kriegsstrategie sind. Aber das diskutiert man, wie gesagt, nicht über Mikrofone, sondern in Besonnenheit und in Ruhe. Und zwar in jedem Land gilt hier das Gleiche. Wir sind in der Verantwortung, die Sicherheit unserer Bürgerinnen und Bürger zu garantieren. Im Herzen Europas, im Süden Europas, aber vor allen Dingen auch im Osten Europas, direkte Nachbarschaft zu Russland und dafür alles zu leisten, weil wenn wir jetzt nicht in unsere Sicherheit investieren, dann werden wir das in Zukunft niemals bezahlen können. Danke. Vielen Dank.
Hey, good afternoon. Tomorrow we are celebrating 75 years of NATO, and NATO is stronger than ever before. Sorry, I help you as well. But yes, we are very happy as well to welcome Sweden as a full member of NATO today. As well, this year we are celebrating 20 years of membership for Estonia in NATO. And I can say that without this membership and also membership of the European Union, probably I couldn't stand here as a Foreign Minister of the independent country Estonia, because Russia has shown that Russia is very aggressive. Of course, in these 2 days meetings, we are focusing on how can we support Ukraine in the long term. But actually, we all know what Ukraine needs, and Ukraine needs rapidly ammunition and weapons. So we must find a ways as well to support Ukraine very quickly and rapidly with ammunition and weapons. But it's very important as well, we are going to discuss the long-term commitments. Estonia is going to sign with Ukraine bilateral agreement about next year's and we have promised 0.25% of our GDP per year military support, and we have proposed as well that all allies should do the same. So I'm welcoming the Secretary General initiative about long-term commitments. If everybody, all the allies, are putting in 0.25% of GDP military support every year, it is together 120 billion euros, and it is enough military support for Ukraine to push Russia back. As well, I'm very happy that we are going to have a discussion on the G7 level as well in the European Union, and it will be marked as well in NATO declaration that there is an opportunity to use the Russian frozen assets. This is as well an opportunity to explain our voters and taxpayers that instead of their money in the long term we are going to use the Russian frozen assets, because Russia must pay for that. So these are the main topics, and I really do hope that we're going to prepare our decisions for the NATO summit which takes place in Vilnius, in Washington DC. Thank you very much.
Prime Minister of Estonia, one of the strong candidates to the next NATO Secretary of General. What do you think?
We have said as well publicly that we are going to support Mr. Rutte as the next Secretary General candidate. As well, we have the President from Romania, a very good candidate, but I do hope that we are going to find a consensus before the NATO summit in Vilnius. So we are going to focus on the topics, not about personalities. So let's see. Hopefully we can solve the question of the next Secretary General before the Washington summit.
Minister, can I ask on NATO's plan for 100 billion?
Hey, hey.
How are you? I've seen that.
Okay, if you all are able to find your seats, we can start this meeting in just a second. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to this meeting of NATO Foreign Ministers. This is the first ministerial meeting with Sweden taking its rightful place as a full member. A clear demonstration that NATO's door remains firmly open. Today we will prepare for the Washington summit in July. At the summit we'll take forward our work to strengthen our deterrence and defense and ensure fair burden sharing. We'll bolster our support for Ukraine and will deepen our cooperation with our partners in the Pacific as well as the European Union. Today we will also discuss how to address instability in our southern neighbourhood and agree a new policy on women, peace and security. All of this contributes to our shared security, which we have been safeguarding together successfully for 75 years. This ends the public part of the meeting. I thank the media for joining us at the top of the meeting, and the meeting continues in just a moment. So thank you so much to the press.
Romain. Elma.
No, doorstep, no. They're coming in.
konnte gerade eben nicht rangehen. Baerbock war hier. Wie kann ich helfen? Okay, kein Problem. Umso besser. Bleibst denn bei der Schalte um 17.30 Uhr im Studio? Alles gut. Super. Und ihr wisst auch, wie ihr mit Harry in Kontakt kommt wegen Fragen. Handynummer. Ja, wunderbar. Das müsste passen. Ne? Danke. Tschüss.
Symbol Turkey, that's for the UK.
Should be Blinken. It's the US. Yeah. Good afternoon.
Mr. Blinken, good afternoon. Frankreich. Albanien, Türkei war schon durch. Mhm. Okay. Wie bitte? Werbung. Ja, total. Also es ist nicht ausgeschlossen. Das wäre eine der Möglichkeiten. Man muss jetzt die Möglichkeiten abwägen. Ich glaube, bei ihr ist alles eine beabsichtigte Vorstellung durchaus gestriert. Das kann man dann, glaube ich, schon so wiedergeben. Also es ist noch nicht vorbei. Frankreich könnte noch kommen, Albanien. Landsbergen. Niederlande. Silke hatte gebeten, dass wir hier bei der NATO noch einen Abschluss geben. Vox-Pops von uns. Wollen wir das denn hier gleich nach dem Vorfahrten machen? Und Spionen. Welche Qualität wir haben. Das ist so scheiße schwer. Ich kann nicht mehr. Gott sei Dank ist das morgen nur eine Stunde. Und es ist sau weit weg. Das war einfach das. Also ich habe keine Chance, mir das irgendwie unterzuklemmen oder so, weil ich gerade mal so hinkomme. wenn die so ein bisschen näher wären, könnte ich es mir hier gemütlich drunter klemmen. Aber die stehen ja noch vor dem Teil meistens. Da bin ich echt schon am Anschlag. Nee. Ja, ich weiß, war. Ja, das Studio auch, wenn man zum Beispiel mit dem. Ja, ich weiß, danke. Ich glaube, die bauen. Wenn die groß NATO abbauen, dann ist es over. Sehr gut.
Thank you.